Do you hate ads? I hate ads. You know what I love? Patreon.com/inkdependence, where patrons get access to a patron-only Discord, ad-free videos, and the joy of knowing they help support this channel. Hello folks, welcome to Inkdependence. I'm Mike, and today I'm bringing you some breaking news. Not exactly breaking news, but some new stuff. So we all know probably that Pilot got rid of 3 inks from their Iroshizuku line this year in 2024, Karasame, Tsutsuji, and Kosomosu. But they also have introduced 3 new ones. So Toro, which is this one, Syun-Gyo, this one, and also Rikka. I might be saying these wrong. I don't speak Japanese, but I did look up what these are named after, and Toro is Warm Lantern, which is kind of beautiful. Then the Syun-Gyo is Spring Dawn, and Rikka is Snow Crystal. So I went to my local brick and mortar yesterday and picked all of these up. They go for $23.73 out there on the internets, as well as probably in your brick and mortar store. So hey, support brick and mortar stores. If you have that available, they need that kind of support. So yeah, I went and picked all 3 of these up, and after seeing some early pictures of them, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like any of these. Like, I kind of wanted this one. I think this one looked really good on the internets. This one just looked like a boring blue, and this one looked fine but unremarkable. But today, during a live stream on Twitch, which I do twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, go see me over there as Inkdependence Mike, I was just swatching these out and talking to the crowd and looking for things that people might think were similar and going through my color decks and all that. So let's take a look at what these look like. Firstly, they all come in the standard beautiful bottle. These are 50 ml bottles. I like that they have a little dip at the bottom for when they get low. I really like these bottles a lot. They are a fairly pricey bottle of ink, but 50 mils for 23 bucks is not that wild these days, unfortunately. And they all look very interesting. This one especially looks like very like red purple in the bottle, which is interesting. This one you can clearly see what color that is, and this one just kind of looks like a normal blue. This looks blue, and some of the swatches that I've seen of this online look very blue. So I just wasn't that impressed with this one. I was like, I don't know, I might just skip it. But I decided, no, I'm going to get all 3. This one, like, I don't know, maybe I'll skip it. But I decided, no, I'm going to get all 3. So I did. So let's look at what these are like. So firstly, let's go ahead and look at, this is Rikka, the one I was going to skip. And it does not look like I thought it was going to. This is actually a really pretty color. And as we'll see, I don't really have anything that's this color. I've got a couple that are like a little bit close, but this is not close to any of the other Iroshizukus that I have. These are all swatched on, these are Colodex cards, just color ring paper, what I do all of my swatches on. And yeah, it's a really pretty kind of complex, sort of dusty blue. It's got a little bit of a multi-chrome in there. A tiny bit of maybe some sheen, just a little bit of maybe purple sheen. Although, yeah, I guess it's sheen, just a little bit. Really fun, right? I think that's pretty darn cool. So there's that one. Next up, I'm going to show you Toro, because this is the one that I think looks the closest to the swatches I've seen online. I did see somebody say that they think this is really like a highlighter ink and they wouldn't use it in a pen, but I just disagree. I don't think this is highlightery at all. It looks like it's going to be a very readable, like, I don't know, like a yellow-orange, kind of? I don't have these in pens yet, so I can only show you what I've done with dip pens, but these Pilot Iro Utsushi dip pens use a fountain pen nib, and they are usually very accurate to me as to like what it's going to look like out of a fountain pen. So this is a medium Pilot nib, and that's this little one right here. This was done, the larger bits were done with a one of the steel Kakamori nibs, which put down a whole lot of ink, of course, but I was looking for that, so that's kind of the point. But these, I think, are actually very accurate to what it looks like from your average fountain pen. So that's why I really like these the best for my dip pens. But this, I think, will be a totally readable ink, and I think if you try to use this as a highlighter, you'd have a bad time. And then lastly, the one that looks nothing like, well, this one doesn't look like anything I've seen online either, but is this one. This is Syun-Gyo, which is Spring Dawn, and it is really interesting. I wasn't sure what color family to even look at for this one, but I kind of looked through my weirds, and that's actually the only place I found anything that was kind of close. But you have a green sheen on there, which is really neat. And I got a lot of that green sheen in here. I didn't really get so much of it in the writing, so I don't think it's one that you're going to see a whole lot of. But on the right papers, I think you definitely will. It's slightly like super dark grape maybe, or kind of raisin-y. I've seen it described as a red black, and that just doesn't that's not what this looks like to me. It doesn't look like a red black. And I've also seen it described as like a dark purple, and I think that's much closer. But I mean, it's a really dark purple. So yeah, these are interesting colors, and they're not like things that were already existing in the line. So I like that. Let's look at these on a couple of other papers right quick. So in trying to match some of the swatches I saw online, I grabbed this one because this is Yamamoto bank paper. I got this in one of these little things from Yamamoto. There's these fun little pads of paper. Because I wanted to see what it would do on this. Somebody's like, oh yeah, I've seen it on the bank paper and it looked different. It doesn't look that different. The blue is, I think, a little bit less dusty on this paper, but it's a very glossy paper and also very thin. Syun-Gyo looks slightly lighter on here, like a slightly lighter purple, and you don't really get the sheen so much, although there definitely is some sheen there. And then we're looking at the Instagram for Fude Fan. He had it on this Yamamoto Taka. Man, I can't even say that one, but this is another kind of bank paper, and it turns out I had some of this as well, and so I went in and tried to match it, and like it looks a little bit more purple on here for the Syun-Gyo, and this one looks a little bit lighter blue, but it's still not, doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really look the same, and it doesn't, I don't know, it's interesting, right? Like these are interesting and different from what the results that I saw online, and I like that because the results I saw online were not thrilling, but these all look really good. This is the closest to what I saw from Fruity Fan, whose name I think is Jacob, but he I think had a lot more light going on his, and maybe that helped, but not really sure. So let's look at what these look like next to a bunch of other inks. I went through my Colodexes and pulled out anything that was like kind of close, or things that people like had said might be close, and then it turns out like they're kind of not at all. So let's start out with a couple of Iroshizukus. I've heard some folks say, or I saw some folks say, this looks a lot like Konpeki, and it doesn't look a thing like Konpeki in my experience here. None of these swatches make it look like Konpeki. Like it just does not. Or Amairo, which I was also like, I don't know, it kind of looks like Amairo. These two look very similar to me. This is just a little bit darker in some areas, but these look very similar to me. I don't really think we need both of these in the Iroshizuku line, but Rikka is not close to either of those, which is like good, right? You don't want to have the same thing in the whole line. For things that were closer, I think this is fairly close. This is a Birmingham ink called Kingfisher, but it's that one's a little bit more green. My friend Dustin said, hey, what about Diamine Odinil, which is, again, way more green. And then somebody suggested Birmingham Pinko Sea Holly, which I think is closer. So somewhere in between these, we go like like this. Maybe this is kind of the progression, right? Lighter, much darker, somewhere in the middle, but I think also more complicated than either. And then Robert Oster, Cities of Australia, Sydney, is fairly close, but again, darker, and it lacks some of the other tones we have in here. And then this one, which is a pigmented ink, I think is like kind of close maybe, but that's Linen Toolbar Hobe, and I think it's just kind of too dark. So I think these are probably the closest, with this one being like a few steps darker. So yeah, these are, I think, as close as we're getting to Rikka, at least in my collection. And I have probably literally hundreds of blues and teals and stuff that I went through to find all these, and I just didn't find anything that was that close. So that's great. I love finding an ink that's not that close to anything, except for these two, which probably a lot of people don't have because they're smaller brands, and like this I think was a limited run for the Cities of Australia. I couldn't find this online anymore, and I'm not sure if they make Kingfisher well, no, they probably make Kingfisher. This is a newer one, so probably the closest you're gonna get are these two. So there you go, that's Rikka, which is fun. Then let's go ahead and look at this one, because this one was the easiest to find things that were kind of close. So here is Birmingham Pinko Sunburst, which is fairly similar, but it's more yellow and less orange. So that's fun. Then also, this is Mont Blanc Golden Yellow, which I think is fairly close. I think the Golden Yellow gets lighter than Toro does, but I think it's fairly close in some of those tones, especially where it's put down a lot more heavily. Then I pulled out Ackerman Dutch Masters number 3, which is, I think, too orange, but fairly close. Like some of these tones are in there. Private Reserve's Buttercup, this is their old one. This is from a long time ago. It's fairly close, but they don't really make that one anymore. There's a new version of it, and I don't have the new version. And then there's also Roaring Klingner's Helianthus, which I think is pretty darn close. A really good ink, Helianthus, but this one kind of in the lighter areas is looking like the darker areas of Toro, so I think that's kind of too dark. And then, because folks asked for them, I pulled a couple of Ferris wheel press inks that are popular. This one is Buttered Popcorn. Folks are like, I think it looks like buttered popcorn. And it does a little bit, but I think buttered popcorn here is darker, but also maybe it's not as wet or something. This, I'm pretty sure, was done with the same pen, and it looks much lighter. And then also Main Street Marmalade, which I think is a little bit closer, but too orange. So I don't have anything that's a dead-on duplicate for Toro at all, but I think Helianthus is fairly close, and also this Dutch Masters is like kind of close. So yeah, there you go. Not like anything else I have from Iroshizuku anyway, which is pretty neat. And, all right, lastly, this one, and I have the fewest comparable inks for this one. I pulled Waringul's Don Quixote, which I was never really happy with. It's kind of like, it was always a little too dry for me. It just kind of was lacking something. I just never really liked it. I liked it best out of the Zizo pen there, but that was a very, very wet nib. But like if this was several shades darker, maybe it would be kind of like that one. I also pulled Krishna Pencil because I think it's got a lot of like stuff in common in spirit, even though in the final result they're very different. This is kind of a multi-chrome raisin, and this is, I think, raisiny, but it veers more towards sheen. But this color and the interior there, I think, are not that far off, interestingly. Also, I don't know what pencil this is supposed to look like. That would be... Everybody would love pencils if they looked like that, I think. Then Kala Gemstone Hematite, which is a pigmented ink, I think is reasonably close to this one, although it's going to lack the sheen because it's a pigmented ink and it just doesn't have those. And then this one is like kind of close, but more red. Like it goes red instead of purple. I've always liked Colorverse Dark Energy. I think it's one of the dark horses in the Colorverse line. It's not one you hear about very often, but I've had bottles of this for a very long time, and I really like it a lot. It's got the same kind of sheen, but it definitely goes more red. So as far as color, I think probably Hematite's the closest, but nothing else is really like this. I don't have another ink that's like that at all. It's a weird, kind of hard to define raisiny purple, I guess. But yeah, really interesting. I think they did cool stuff with this line. So yeah, these don't look like what I expected them to look like, honestly. And I'm glad, because I was expecting to be underwhelmed and like whelmed, but I think I really like all three of these. So that's neat. I'm looking forward to getting these in pens. This is just kind of like a first look with a lot of comparisons. I'll get them in pens and be doing reviews for these in the near-ish future in the new year. Until then, think about what you put out in the world, make it a better place, and let me know which ones of these you like, and if there's some other ink that you think I should compare to it. I gotta warn you, I don't have every ink, so there are gonna be some that might be closer that I just don't have, but I've got a fair number, and I didn't have anything that close to most of them. This one probably I got the closest to. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, enjoy your ink, and I'll see you later. Peace out, y'all.